Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another Oxford Business Insights podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about culture in business, and I'm delighted to welcome James Leavesley, the founder and CEO of Cultiv8tiv, an innovative company that's looking to help companies build the culture and become more productive, efficient, and more successful through their humans in their workplace. Welcome, James.
Morning, Nick.
And thank you for giving us your time today. So you've got quite an ambitious mission to go and help 10,000 organisations build awesome cultures with a little bit of help from AI. And I'm sure we'll come on to that during the course of this. But just to get started, what problems are you trying to solve with Cultiv8tiv?
So, there's a number of challenges here. So I think, culture is quite often misunderstood by organisations, by leaders. So therefore, few SMEs especially spend any time on it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't measure it. And as we know, if you don't measure it, you don't spend any time on it, and therefore, you're not going to do any work on it. So the second is how people are managed. Culture is very much about how people are managed, how they interact with each other, what the rules are, written and unwritten, that govern the workplace, and wrapped up together, those can often be the difference between a motivated employee or a demotivated employee.
Yep.
So what we wanted to do was provide a cost-effective way for leaders to understand the culture they have, so they can build the culture they want. So we use a blend of anonymous assessment and AI to quantify the health and strength of an organization's culture, providing detailed analysis and actionable insights.
Interesting. I'd like to come on to the AI side of it, because I know that these types of studies, whether done by external consultants or internal HR departments, they can generate a huge amount of data if they're done properly. So I'd love to come and talk about the AI side later in the podcast. But keeping with the sort of the fundamentals, why do you think organisation culture matters, particularly in the smaller to medium-sized businesses that I know you're focused on? So we're not on the whole talking about the huge corporates, the big banks and so forth. We're talking about small to medium-sized businesses with tens or perhaps low hundreds of employees, aren't we, really, as your core market? Okay, so why does it matter?
Yeah, so if you think about pretty much all sectors or all businesses in all sectors, the salary bill is generally the single largest cost for any organization. So that bill is the same regardless of whether you've got a motivated workforce or a demotivated workforce, whether you've got an engaged workforce or an unengaged workforce. And I think that I think because culture is quite often kind of understood, that people think it's about huge kind of transformation projects that are going to cost loads of money, take loads of time, etc., etc. And actually, what we wanted to do was really to show that actually it's about small tweaks that senior leaders can make that can have a big impact on employee motivation.
Okay.
And then when you got a more motivated employee, you will increase kind of innovation, you'll improve productivity, reduce employee churn, just an overall make the organization a better place to work, make people want to wake up on a Monday and feel excited about going to work, rather than Sunday evening dread, oh no, it's the working day that starts tomorrow.
Excellent. No, I understand that. I think also people can quite often underestimate the overall cost of business if they have got a high turnover of staff turnover. If you can reduce that is a direct economic benefit, as well as having the motivated employees that you describe. So I guess there'd be quite a few people listening or watching that might have participated in more traditional surveys or been part of that process. Whether it's, as I said, whether it's within internal HR departments or run by internal HR departments or external consultants. So, what takes your approach different from traditional surveys?
Yeah, so you've got traditional employee engagement surveys. They tend to sort of scratch the surface and provide you with trends. Generally answering the question, how happy are you at work? So so you might know that you've got some issues, but you don't know really what those issues are or what's causing them. So actually, what we've done is we've built a framework around 12 areas, and within that framework, we're asking some pretty gritty questions to get to the heart of what's going on within the organization, and more importantly, to get people to really explain their answer. So not only do we understand what the issues are, but what's causing them, and then through the use of AI, what can be done to then address them. So in really simple terms, many of these kind of surveys, you get the results back, and then you've got human analysis trying to interpret that information,
Yeah,
which takes, doesn't matter whether it's an external HR consultant or an internal team. That manual assessment, it's going to take manual effort to try and build out what does it mean, and build a report.
yeah,
Whereas actually what we wanted to say, so it's going to take you time, together with the day job and everything else. So you end up finishing one of these kind of surveys, and then months go by before you actually get to provide any kind of results back to either the senior management or, more importantly, actually back to the employees as well, because they participated in this. So, so our assessment, we launch it, it's open for 3 weeks, it's then closed. Our AI gets to work on the analysis, it generates the report within a matter of hours. So actually, you finish the assessment, you know, at the end of the working day. The next morning, you're sitting there with the results and a
wow.
full-blown report, which means that you can then go through that with the kind of senior management team to decide kind of what next, decide what information are we going to then feed back. So in an ideal scenario, you launch it, it's live, you get the responses, you discuss it as a management team. 1 week after the assessment's finished, you're presenting the findings back to the workforce to say, thank you for taking part, and this is what we found. And therefore, guess what? The next time you ask them to do this, you'll get more people responding with more honest answers,
Yeah.
which means that actually you get then a better result.
Okay, and just to clarify something, I know from my own past experience that typically you might run a survey and close that, as you say, after 3 weeks or so, but then from the participants' point of view, it just goes deathly silent for literally a couple of months sometimes or longer while that analysis is done by humans. So it seems to me the AI is shortening that down from weeks into hours, and
It's also not only do you get the speed element, but you get the total objectivity as well.
yeah,
So you don't have any. There's no subjection
yeah,
around. This is what I think this means, or bringing in personal experiences. You're literally, in our case, we're interpreting the data and then presenting those findings.
excellent. So look, that brings me up a little bit, perhaps to talk a little bit more about the technology that you used and deployed. So what was the sort of the journey you went through to develop the product? Was it a bright idea? Do you have a background in sort of product development or technology product development? Tell us a bit about the journey that you've been on to get this product to where it is now.
Yeah, so I come from a sales and marketing background. I had a previous tech business in the social media risk management space, and so the actual idea itself came from kind of real life personal
Right.
experience. So we had a business, and as CEO, you don't always get to see kind of what's really going on, how people
Yeah.
interact and behave when you're not in the room, because people tend to be on their best behavior. If you're in a meeting, if you walk into an open plan office, then what may be going on normally tends to stop. So, but what I did was, I did witness, teams not getting on, and silos that had been created within the organization. And I didn't actually set out to deliberately have a poor culture,
Yeah.
but actually we just didn't have a focus on it. We and we didn't have any structures in place. We had values, we had a mission and purpose. We just didn't talk about them. We didn't have them as a robust framework, and we didn't enforce them. So actually, it was almost a pointless, having a set of values was almost a pointless activity. We didn't really use them. So, I had to get someone in. We interviewed everybody anonymously, and that's a really key thing here, is that, that it is totally anonymous what we do. So it gives people comfort to provide honest responses. We got the report. Again, report took a while to be compiled. And actually, kind of, I am pretty impatient. So once you've got some issues, it's kind of like, okay, great, give me the facts. We need to get on and fix something. So we went on a journey, built strong culture. And I'm really proud of the culture that we built. One team, one set of rules, for everyone, right from the CEO down to the most junior team members, with everybody holding each other to account. So the idea itself came from wanting to give other CEOs the ability to very quickly and cost effectively know what's going on in their organization, so that they can then build the culture they want. So know the culture you've got to build the culture you want. So and therefore I assembled a team, which happened to be some of my old tech team, in order to basically go on this journey, design the product, design the framework, built the AI, and obviously now where we are, which is bringing to market.
Excellent. Excellent. And in terms of how that team is built, did you have to bring new people onto the team to help you as well? I know you had a core team that you worked with before. Was it specialist requirements as well on top of what you had before?
Yeah, so sort of AI specialists, data scientists, so skills that we just hadn't worked with
Right.
before. But as part of my network, I was kind of lucky enough to engage with someone who just had a passion for what we were doing. So and because we had bootstrapped this, then this was about making sure the team that we're in, first of all, had skin in the game. So they had equity, and they had a passion for what we wanted to achieve, which is that kind of helping 10,000 organizations build awesome cultures.
Yeah, it's great vision. Great vision. So, how long did that sort of technological build? I know it's probably in one sense never ending. You're always probably going to keep developing it. But how long did it take to deliver the basic product? And was there anything surprises along the way?
Yeah, so I mean, this journey started kind of 18 months ago. Building the assessment framework, the overall concept. We then spent 12 months developing the platform, and alongside that, our AI module that completes the analysis. So, and then we actually had 6 months of kind of real organization testing, which was so useful, because actually there's only so much that you can do with bots and
Yeah.
and your own internal testing. So, the original plan, was for like a 3-month tech build, and
Always is.
and it's become 12. So, you could kind of argue that, we should all be sacked as kind of project managers, because we almost did an HS2 on the timescales. But actually, I think because we worked in a really agile way, so we built an MVP, got that into people's hands. That product then started to evolve. So actually, it was then the real live users and the real live organizations that we were dealing with that where actually the real value came in for the additional things that
Yeah,
we built into the product. So I think, yes, it was going to take 3 months, it took 12, but we've ended up with a significantly better product as a result of that, and especially the off the back of the 6 months of real organization testing.
excellent. And just clarify those companies you work with to test. Just remind me what that sort of companies that were. I know it's quite a wide range of companies you've tested it with.
Yeah, so this is probably an interesting thing. I thought that giving people free access to some new innovative tech would be actually pretty easy. And but actually you end up actually having to do a proper sales job, even though it's free.
Yeah,
I think so. So actually we ended up doing a lot of pitching to a lot of different organizations, and this resonates with some, and some are willing to then take a risk, take a punt
yeah,
on some new tech. So the kind of the organizations, were across kind of charities, housing associations. We had a fast growing utility company, we had a medical practice, engineering company, construction company, global software company, and a whole host of others. So across different scales. So we had some that were down to 10, 15 employees, right up to kind of 800. And so, it was and what it had to do was to work for all those types of organizations, because that's basically the makeup of the SME market.
absolutely, absolutely. So just to wrap up this sort of section on the technology development, remind me about your team. I know you brought in some people you've worked with beforehand, but just what's the scale of the scope of the team now working on the product?
Yeah, so we've got three software engineers, all senior, all that I had worked with in the past, that were part of kind of building the like a great culture in the previous organization, so they could personally see the power of it. And then a data scientist, an AI specialist, and then I lead on the business development and sales. So it's a pretty lean outfit at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. And so, look, you say you develop, you focus on business development sales. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, how are you taking this to the market? I understand what you did with when you as the development people you work with, and you had to do quite a bit of pitching to get people to take up the free offer. But how are you taking this to market as a more commercial proposition?
Yeah, so has changed considerably. Again, since it was always my intention to not have a business plan, because if I focus on having a business plan, and it's all just a bunch of made up numbers initially, until you've got some real world kind of
Yeah.
history. So my original plan was sell directly to the SME market,
Yeah.
because that's where we can see that there really is the opportunity to kind of for organizations to unleash the power of their people, so together they can do amazing things. So the upside is it's a massive market. The downside is that it's a massive market, and therefore it becomes really costly to access. And so our model of get someone on for free in that space, get a case study, and then build from there. Actually, it's a costly way of it is a costly way of doing things. And so, and on this journey, we kind of bumped into, a series of kind of leadership consultants,
Yeah.
business coaches, HR, consultancies, and they showed an interest in the product as well.
Excellent. Okay. And so, but you, particularly with the HR consultancies, how do you sort of approach them? How do you engage with them? Because I could see some might see you as a threat.
Yeah, I think so. So, we're pretty open about what we do and
Yeah.
what we don't do. So, even though we say that we help organizations to understand the culture they have so they can build the culture they want,
Yeah.
all we do is the analytical piece. So we explain this is what's going on in your organization. So some organizations will self-serve, so they will take, our output and then implement and make the changes required. Others will engage with a HR leadership consultant in order to kind of help them along on that journey. So as soon as the consultants could see that we're not doing any consultancy, then the barrier comes down. So that actually they're
Yeah.
willing to have an open and kind of honest conversation. And I think there's lots of work in this area, but actually it's the analysis that takes the time.
Yeah.
So the consultants had this challenge, which is they wanted to kind of work on culture with their clients, but they just didn't have a cost-effective way of actually getting a real understanding. So we did the maths on that with these consultants, and we could work out that we could do it for roughly 20 to 25% of the cost that they can do it, which means that it's a better deal for their customers. And therefore, actually, they can use the budget that would have been spent on the analysis on doing the execution.
Right.
So, so I think it's quite a strong partnership because we don't do any execution and we can do the analysis faster, quicker,
Yeah.
more detail than they can.
Excellent. And so, in terms of how the partnership model works, the consultant, what do they get access to a platform, and can they set up their own clients? Tell me a bit about how the partnership model looks like with an HR consultancy.
Yeah, so the consultant gets access to our platform, you can spin clients up, launch an assessment, and obviously the results come in. That's shared between the client themselves and the consultant, and then the consultant is in helping their client make sense of the information and decide what's the plan of attack. So, how are we going to prioritize the things that need to be done? So, and we know that we definitely know that it works and it generates money. And there's some, we've got some fairly extreme examples, but it's probably worth sharing. We had 200-person sort of software company, and our assessment, the report comes out. They work with a consultant, and technically the client said, "Read this, come back with a proposal," and stage one of that is 80 grand.
Right.
So and this is for leadership and management training. So which actually is culture is very much influenced by leadership and management.
Yeah.
And actually, what we do is expose some of the the areas where there can be improvement. And I think so as a result, the client needs somebody to then help them fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah.
Be able to create better leaders, be able to create better managers.
Okay. Excellent. And so, looking in future, what's the sort of roadmap for expansion? Is it looking at different sectors or maybe different partnerships? Is it adding extra capability to what you do? How do you see the next 2 to 3 years in terms of product development, where you might be selling this approach?
Yeah, so we've got that target of 10,000 organizations. So we've got two new products launching shortly.
Yeah.
So one is a slightly lighter version of our current assessment tool, maybe for less complex
Right.
organizations, and then we've got an engagement version as well for those organizations that want to swap out their traditional employee engagement survey and replace it with something that actually kind of again gives them some real kind of
Okay.
meaty stuff to get their teeth into.
Okay. And I've got to ask, with a technology company, to scale this, maybe internationally or to different sectors, would you be thinking of raising investment?
Yeah, so as we talked about earlier, bootstrap this to date because I wanted to be able to take something to investors that wasn't just here's an idea, but
Yeah.
actually here's a business. We're starting to get traction on this is what we're doing. What we'd like is money in order to basically, accelerate our kind of go to market, and I made a mistake in a previous business of raising investment too early. Again, probably wasted sort of half of that money, and because we spent money on the wrong things, sometimes the right things, but at the wrong time. And so I wanted to make sure, okay, great, that we get the product right, we get it, we get the feedback, we're now ready to go. And then, so actually, what we need is kind of money for the sales and marketing, because then we can actually then start generating income and then spend that on growing the business further.
Excellent. Okay, no, I fully understand that sort of strategy. And so, just thinking a little bit, sort of maybe slightly longer term, how do you see the product evolving? More AI, or in terms of how you might adapt it to meet customers' needs? I know you're developing a slightly lighter version for smaller or simpler organisations. But tell me how you see the product evolving over in the slightly longer term.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and that because we've worked in an agile way, then actually lots of what we get is kind of feedback that we
Yeah.
then say, okay, what is that? What's the problem? Okay, and then creatively we have to come up with some kind of technical solution to help solve it. So I think a lot of how we will take the product forwards will depend on the challenges, issues that customers have, and that they're presenting us with that we can then use the tech
Right.
to solve. So that's about kind of agile uh, product development. I think that we and then we've also got our AI, which actually we've all sort of stands alone by itself, really. So and it will analyze anything that we give it.
Right.
So actually, there is a version to be able to kind of white label it so that other organizations that, let's say, produce kind of large volumes of survey data that can then actually push that into our kind of AI and then get a similar output. So just with whatever it is, the questions and the structure that they're using. So that's something that is again to be explored.
Okay. No, I'm sure you've learned a lot on the way through, and I'm sure you'll continue learning because of the nature of the organisation you are. So look, I'd like to sort of just shift gears slightly and talk about a little bit about you as an entrepreneur and a business owner, if that's okay. So what drives you personally to build this particular product, and yeah, and as you say, you're bootstrapping it. It's never easy doing that that approach. I'm sure it's the right one for. I completely understand when you said you sometimes you can bring in investment too early. But tell us a little bit about what drives you.
Yeah, so personal experience, really, I've seen the power of good and bad cultures
Yeah,
and the effect it can have on employees.
yeah,
So, what this was about was saying, I mean, obviously we read in the press at the moment that the UK has kind of very low levels of productivity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the secret to unlock that is within the gift of managers and leaders within those organizations. So, and what I wanted to do was to provide a cost-effective way for others to see the culture they've got so they can build the culture they want and therefore unlock the the productivity, unlock faster innovation, unlock better commercial performance through the people that they're already paying to do the jobs that need to be done.
Okay. I hear what you're saying completely. And just sort of, what's been the most fulfilling and frustrating elements of this journey been on for the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I had a great. Let's start with the fulfilling bit. So I had a great conversation yesterday with a global software company. Who were the people team were telling me just the how they had what they got
Yeah.
from running our culture assessment, and and it basically gave them data, it gave them exactly what was going on, it gave them in a really easy to digest format. So the CEO was then kind of engaged in the process, digesting the information, getting a real sense of what was going on within their organization. And they've talked about some of the tweaks that they made and the difference that it has actually made within their organization. So the most fulfilling bit is, wow, we that is one of those 10,000 organizations that has that actually is building an awesome culture and unlocking and unleashing the power of their people.
Great.
So that's probably the most fulfilling thing, which is we're making a difference.
Yeah.
So to all of those employees and to the leadership within that organization and the shareholders,
Yeah.
as well. So what's been the most frustrating? I'm just a really impatient person. So, when we set the 3 months, to build this, which obviously then turned into 12 months. So you kind of have to temper
Yeah.
that, try not to show that frustration, but actually, there's a bit of personal journey in here for me as well, which is the fact that actually you just have to kind of you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
So, I think so. I'm naturally impatient, want everything done yesterday, but that's not possible unless you're going to throw vast sums of money
Yeah.
at this. Therefore, it's about actually the trade-offs and the balance.
Okay. Well, just to follow on that and but broadening it out a little bit, if we had any sort of founders of perhaps technology orientated businesses that might be listening to this, what would your general advice be to somebody at the sort of the very early stage of developing their business and product?
Yeah, so I think so. Kind of two things really. So bootstrapping is good. I think it really helps you to focus the mind because whether it is where you spend the money you are putting into the business or where you spend the limited development resource that you have, everything becomes a trade-off. So you really have to kind of say before you commit to doing something, you really need to know, okay, why are we doing this? What is this going to take priority over?
Yep.
Because you can do A or B, you can't do both at the same time. So I think that really helps kind of focus the mind. And the other is find people that have got a similar passion
Yep.
because you are stronger together as a team. I think being a lone entrepreneur, can be very lonely.
Yep.
Um, and I think you need people who can share some of the emotional burden that comes with building something from scratch.
Excellent. Well, look, that's been a fascinating description of the journey you've been through, and I'd really like to thank you for taking the time to tell us about that. We've heard about James's journey from startup, developing that, working with the technical product, working with partners, learning from partners, pivoting on the sales strategy along the way. But I've no doubt is on going to achieve his goal of making real difference to the culture and productivity of small to medium sized businesses, and 10,000 or more of them, I'm sure, will be delivered in the not too distant future. Because I think it's fascinating and a really important development. So thank you, James.
Thank you, Nick.
And most importantly, if there's anybody who wants to know how to get in touch with you or learn a little bit more about Cultiv8 in the context of their own business, tell us how the best way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, so visit the website, cultiv8tiv.com.
Yeah.
I think, Nick, you'll share the link, hopefully.
Yeah, it will be.
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, I'm more than, culture is my favorite topic. And therefore I'm really happy to have conversation, with people. So track me down on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to provide my email as well, which is james.leavesley@cultiv8tiv.com. So any of those mechanisms, happy to respond to all of them.
And obviously, if there's people here within the group that can invite and share and subscribe to this podcast, that will help get the message out there more widely. Well, look, James, thank you very much. I really enjoyed hearing about your mission, and I can only endorse the mission as a business coach myself to try and help small, medium-sized businesses boost their productivity and effectiveness as businesses by looking at the team culture, looking at the quality of the people and making them more productive. Most importantly, acting on what they learn as well. So look, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be back soon with another Oxford Business Insights podcast. Thank you.